Guys, I am trying to continue to open every video in February with a romantic, fantasy inspired pun, but every time I keep trying to research vampire puns, vampire dad jokes, they just literally all suck. What's going on, YouTube? Oftentimes, you guys will ask me fantastic questions. However, I run into a bit of a problem, and that is I don't know the answer to your questions. You guys wanted a support class tier list. You think to yourself, Jake, I've got this Warden. I've got this DK. Can they fit into the support roles other than DPS, solo, or PvP, which is generally the focus of when I make my tier list? So I had to reach out and get some help for this video. So I reached out to Doc, another Elder Scrolls Online YouTuber who does fantastic healing work, breaks down how to get into healing, different guides as well for support roles. So he has infinitely more knowledge than I do on this topic. And before I read you the intro that he helped write for this video, 3 weeks ago, he hit 500 subscribers, and he is only 77 subscribers away. So please subscribe to Doc, and let's jump into his introduction. And he says, hey, Jake, and anyone else who happens to see this, my name is Doc, and I'm really excited to get to work with Jake and bring you guys a tier list for tanking and healing classes in the Elder Scrolls Online. I want to start off with a couple quick things first. Firstly, this list is going to be made with endgame PvE content in mind, so think veteran trials, hard modes, dungeons, etc. And the second thing is that you don't need to worry too terribly about which class is the best and the worst, because every class can compete in every piece of content in every role. So there are certain classes that are definitely better than others, but there isn't really a huge difference between the S tier and the D tier. I think that should cover the bases, and let's get started. Also note too that we are going to start with the healers. So this tier list to start off is going to be healers first, and then we are going to do tanks. And then Arcanist is the newest kid on the block, and it is also deserving of the A tier. Some people might even argue the S tier, but there are so many Arcanist DPS in the game right now that some of the toolkit will be covered. Still though, they bring some of the best support utility of any healing class with a single skill. Zenith's Empowering. This decently sized AoE skill gives your entire team minor courage, fortitude, intellect, courage, and activates your class buff of minor evasion. This means one skill gives a damage buff, defense buff, and sustain buffs. They can also contribute to minor vulnerability, minor brittle, with good uptime. They can also, without ever having to use an ice staff. In case you thought their utility wasn't enough, they also bring solid healing output with multiple skills that are great for something like Tomb Healing and Sunspire or Sanity's Edge. And Doc would like to apologize to all the DK fans because they're going in the D tier, which ironically is the F tier in this one. Don't worry, we'll change that around here for this video. He says, sorry, got to put him in the D tier. With the prevalence of DK as tanks, there really isn't much reason to be a DK healer. DKs are typically the main tanking class, so you usually won't be without one. They bring some okay utility with minor and major brutality, but that's honestly about it. Their healing output is just fine, but they can't compare with other classes on the list. Much to say, DKs make fantastic takes and are solid for PvP, but for PvE healing, they're at the bottom. Next up, we have the Necromancer, which is going to go comfortably in the B tier. These guys, like DKs, are generally the tanks, but can be decent healers for 4-man content or in trials. Where your team is running a solo tank, they don't bring a whole lot of team buffs, and their healing output isn't the best, but where Necros shine is the debuffs they provide. Major and minor vulnerability, major breach, major cowardice, along with a great source of minor brittle. Also, that resurrection ult is very handy. I've seen it before come in clutch, especially if you regularly run content with randos. While Necros aren't amazing healer, they fill a unique role in healing that they bring some of the best debuffing utility in the game, and the most other healing classes don't really have access to those same debuffs. Next is the Nightblade, which is going into the S tier. But this is only really because of a very specific meta build for trials. I imagine if this build ever stops being the meta, then Nightblades will probably swap spots with the Arcanist. What makes a Nightblade so fantastic is their incredible high ultimate generation. Pairing this with Pearls of Epiphany and Pillager's Prophet means tons of ultimate for the entire raid team. Of course, the rest of their kit is nothing to scoff at either. Their class buff, Minor Savagery, is very easy to apply. They also have solid healing output with one of the strongest single target heals in the entire game. Plus, you can give them, plus they can give out major expedition. And who doesn't love some good zoomies? Like my cat who's sleeping over here this time. Next up is the Sorcerer, which unfortunately is getting thrown in the C tier. I've got to put the Sorcerers in the C tier. Similar to some of our other classes, the prevalence of Sorcerers as a DPS class does hurt it a bit. Even on top of that, while Sorcerers have solid healing output, your Twilight Matriarch will take up 2 bar slots if you choose to use it. A lot of buffs they can apply, like Major Breach and Minor Prophecy, will only be applied by DPS. They've got the usual minor intellect and endurance, but other classes can provide them more easily. The only buffs that you can really provide that someone else won't have are minor vitality and major maim. Sorks can be pretty good healers, but just don't quite compare to a lot of the other current classes on the list. Next up, though, for all the Warden fans, they are easily S tier. I don't think it's a hot take to say that Wardens is the best healing class in the game, and has been for a while. Wardens bring everything you could want in a healer. They've got great healing output with unique skills and synergies like Budding Seeds. They bring a ton of defensive buffs like group-wide, minor toughness, and major resolve. They have fantastic self-sustain with skills like Blue Betty. I really don't have much to say about them. It's no secret that no matter what sort of content you find yourself in, Wardens will be the top pick for healing. And finally, we have the Templar, which is going in the B tier. Unfortunately, Doc's favorite class, gotta put the Templar in the B tier. The Templar does one thing extremely well, which is healing output. If you enjoy pushing the limits of how much you can heal, then Templars are the class for you. While their healing is amazing, the heals are expensive and they're lacking a little bit in the utility and self-sustain department. They do bring some solid utility, like the best minor intellect and endurance skill in the game, along with great cleansing synergy via extended ritual and some nice resource restoration via luminous shards. Though I will say that their class buff of minor sorcery does suffer in the age of hybridization, and the shard synergy is shared with the green orb synergy. While it may sound like I'm a little bit more critical on the Templar than our other B tier class, it's just because they don't bring anything very unique outside of awesome group healing. They're still a great healer class, but in terms of utility, there's just other classes that do it better. And now we're moving on to our tanks. Please keep in mind that I'm mainly a healer. I don't have the same extensive knowledge of tanks that I do healers, but I'm still confident in my list, says Doc. And we start again with the Arcanist. And the Arcanist continues to literally do everything well. Like we mentioned in the healing section, Arcanists can provide a lot of buffs to themselves and their allies with very few skills. Runic Defense can grant you minor resolve and minor protection, with a self-healing that procs only when you fall below a certain threshold. Xena's Empowering provides a ton of buffs to yourself and your allies. This debuffs are also very good solid options for both a main tank or an off tank, with the Rune of the Colorless Pool providing minor vulnerability and minor brittle, and they're also very good for 4-man content as well. And if you're a Dragon Knight who's really sad about your previous placement, well, feel sad no longer, because you're going back into the S tier. This class was made to be a tank, and it does the job beautifully. They may not be the most, or have the most name buffs, but even without named buffs, they get increased armor, block mitigation, and resource recovery from passives. They also may not have the most debuffs on this list, but they also have a unique debuff called Stagger, which is only available to DKs via the Stone Giant skill. Plus, you've got insane shields, and that I literally can't die ultimate. See, what makes DKs such great tanks isn't that they do things better, it's that they have fantastic tools that are only exclusive to them. And Necromancers are the go-to off-tank class. I'm putting Necros back in the S tier. While their sustain is solid through the use of things like Spirit Guardian or Disdain Harm, the debuffs they provide are phenomenal. While, like we mentioned in the healing section, they can only apply debuffs like Major Minor Vulnerability, Major Minor Breach, Major Cowardice, along with being a great source of minor brittle. While Necros might not be amazing at other roles today, they still have managed to maintain a spot as an awesome off-tank class. And unfortunately, while Nightblades are fun, they've got some pretty decent defense and sustain, they're going into the C tier. The options in the Shadow skill line like Mirage and Dark Cloak, granting a number of different buffs like Minor Protection, Major Minor Resolve, and Major Evasion, but where they lack is the ability to apply debuffs to enemies. Teleporting Strike applies Minor Vulnerability and marks the target, applies Major Breach, but those things can be done more effectively by other classes. I have a blast playing the Nightblade, but unfortunately, it does not live up to other classes. Next up is the Sorcerer, which goes into the A tier. This may come as a surprise to some people, but I'm actually giving Sorcerers an A tier spot. They have excellent self-sustaining options such as Vibrant Shroud, great damage shields with Hardened Ward, and solid resistances with Bound Aegis. They don't have quite the amount of debuffs that Necros do, but they do have a unique armor-reducing debuff with Crystal Weapon. While it may not stack with the Crusher enchantment, these days it's still an awesome debuff to have in the group. Their Bolt Escape is also great for when off tanks need to be mobile. Overall, a solid tank that I honestly didn't expect to be as good as it is. And a surprise for the Warden, it's going into the B tier. You might be a little bit surprised to hear that. The problem with Warden tanks is that they bring a lot of great defensive utility to the group, but not for themselves. Minor Toughness and Major Resolve are great buffs, but there's a high chance you have a Warden healer who'll be providing that buff for you. Of course, though, any buffs are good buffs, and they have Piercing Cold passives for some extra block mitigation. In terms of debuffs, they also are a great source of Minor Brittle, Minor Vulnerability, and Major Maim, but Arcanists and Necros can do a good job of handling those while also having a bit more to bring in their own defenses as well. And to round off, he apologizes to the Templars out there. He's going to have to put the Templar in the D tier. The problem with Templars is they don't bring what you need to do to be a tank. Templars have tons of fantastic self-healing and group sustain, but if you're a tank, you'll likely have healers that can do that for you. The main defense options they have is Major Resolve from Restoring or Channeled Focus, and as we've seen, plenty of other classes have access to Major Resolve and a lot more. They also have Minor Protection via the Spear Wall passive, but again, there are plenty of better options for minor protection as well. For debuffs, Power of Light can apply Minor Breach, which can be found across other classes and skills. I know ZOS has made some changes over the last few patches to make Templar tanks more desirable, but unfortunately, it's not enough to bring them out of the D tier. And to round off these two great lists, he says, okay, well, I think that should cover it. I apologize if this video ended up being a tad long. I think it's perfect length. But I hope you enjoyed it regardless. Like I mentioned, my name's Doc, and if you have an interest in healing in any game, but especially ESO, you guys are welcome to check out my channel. I'm working on a deep dive over some of ESO's best healing builds, and I should have the first 3 videos posted by the time this goes live. I'll let Jake take over the rest of the video of the outro. Thanks again, Jake, and a special thanks to everyone who watched this video. And he says, you guys take care. So thank you, Doc. Thank you to everybody that watched this video. I hope that this was exactly what you wanted when you made this request in the Discord. Oftentimes, you guys will request things that I just don't know. And I have always stepped away from making videos that I don't feel confident on, because sometimes it worries me that, you don't want to try to force a video if you don't actually know the information, if you're just asking ChatGPT. So a special thanks to Doc for being able to provide such great information, writing me a 5-page script with detailed information about each individual class that I will also be able to share with you guys. Again, Doc's channel, top of the description. And I'm also going to link it in the pinned comment below as well. So thank you guys again for watching. Have a fantastic weekend if you're watching this when it was released. As always, we're doing our quick 3 giveaway drawings. All you need to do to enter is leave a comment in the comments below and like the video. Second thing is just make sure to subscribe and follow on Twitch and Twitter for an additional drawing on that one. And the third thing is look for a hidden word be flashed upon screen. If you're the first person to find and comment that word, you will win. Thank you again, and I'll catch you later. Have a fantastic weekend. Bye, guys.
You better remember to like and subscribe to Jakeclips. Or you should. I might have to pluck your eyes if you don't. Or, better yet, I'll skip rope with your entrails. Do it now. Subscribe. Ta-ta. Off with you.